Breaking news. Let's listen in to President Trump right now.
Had a very, very detailed group of people working on the 737-8 and the 737-9 new airplanes. We're going to be issuing an emergency order of prohibition to ground all flights of the 737 MAX 8 and the 737 MAX 9 and planes associated with that line. I've spoken to Elaine Chao, Secretary of Transportation, Dan Elwell, Acting Administrator of the FAA, and to Dennis Muhlenberg, CEO of Boeing, and they'll be available shortly after our conference today. They are all in agreement with the action. Any plane currently in the air will go to its destination and thereafter be grounded until further notice. So planes that are in the air will be grounded. If they're the 737 MAX, will be grounded upon landing at the destination. Pilots have been notified. Airlines have been all notified. Airlines are agreeing with this. The safety of the American people and all people is our paramount concern. Our hearts go out to all of those who lost loved ones, to their friends, to their families in both the Ethiopian and the Lion Airlines crashes that involved the 737 MAX aircraft. It's a terrible, terrible thing. Boeing is an incredible company. They are working very, very hard right now. And hopefully they'll very quickly come up with the answer. But until they do, the planes are grounded. And you'll be hearing from the FAA directly in a little while. I would say probably in 45 minutes from now, so you'll be prepared to hear. They're going to go into great detail as to what they found and where we're going, what we're doing. But all of those planes are grounded, effective immediately. Okay?
Okay, so the breaking news right now, the president saying an emergency order has been issued to ground this specific type of aircraft here in the U.S., the Boeing 737 MAX 8. The U.S. was the lone holdout up until this moment. Justin, first, your reaction.
Well, I think it's the right call. I was going to say that at least until they've read out the flight data recorder and the cockpit voice recorder and we have a good sense of what happened, to err on the side of safety is the best option.
But to err on the side of safety is what people have been calling for days now.
What's interesting is we're not leading here.
Yeah.
The United States is not leading. Other countries are leading on this issue. We're the nation that manufactures this airplane. Our FAA, our NTSB are the best regulatory and safety investigation agencies in the world, and we should have been more out front. And I do think some politics came into play here, where you had a sense of not getting in the way of Boeing keeping these airplanes flying, and then you had two crashes, one in Indonesia where no Americans were killed, and another one in Ethiopia where only 8 or so Americans were killed. If this had happened in Kansas, I think we would have acted a lot faster than we did.
Les, up until this moment, we know pilots' unions were behind continuing to fly these aircraft. We know the FAA, we know Boeing. A number of airlines had issued their statements as to why they believe the aircraft were still safe and they were planning to make no adjustments. What's your reaction? What do you think was what tipped the scale?
Well, first of all, I agree with. I can't disagree with any of Justin's statements. I'm very curious as what the catalyst was for the FAA to finally reach to this point. As a pilot, all I can do is say, listen, we're driven to make the mission happen and make the mission happen safely. If I'm going to be flying that aircraft, I want to prepare myself to fly that aircraft. If I know that there's some potential problems with it, I'm going to review my manual, discuss it with the crew. Boeing had a remedy for this potential glitch with reference to angle of attack indicators, the MCAS system that we've all been talking about. I would review that procedure, which entails cutting out the trim switches. I would be very cautious for every aspect of the flight. But I would complete that mission. And here's the important thing to tell people, at this point. Boeing is going to fix the problem. They always fix the problem. It's a terrible tragedy that so many people lost their lives over this particular problem, but it will be fixed. And
you
people
keep
should
saying
be
there
confident.
is a problem, but Boeing hasn't come out and said there is a problem that we know of. We do know that they're working on a software upgrade, update of some sort, but yet the planes have been flying all along. They've been working on this software upgrade for months. Do you think that's going to be a liability? Is that going to create legal trouble for them?
My concern is what is this software update supposed to fix? We don't know what it really is supposed to fix at this point in time, and my concern is that will it fix what might have happened with Lion Air? Will it fix what happened with Ethiopian? And remember, the investigation still has to run its course, and now the pressure's off for it to run its course so that we can actually find out what happened specifically to these airplanes.
Justin, any thoughts on how long this investigation is going to take to run its course?
Well, I mean, I think it's short order. You're going to have the readouts from the black boxes. We're going to know what happened. I would say that is in a matter of weeks. And the question, one of the issues is where they're going to send the black boxes. They probably won't read them in Ethiopia. I don't think they have the facilities there. They may send them to France.
Our understanding is they're sending them to Europe. And in fact, they did not want to send them to the U.S. for this investigation. And why is that?
Well, there is a history of nations with companies. For Egypt Air, for example, after there's a crash of an Egypt Air aircraft, there have been concerns whether the investigators in Egypt are really going to do a fair and full investigation. Here, I think people are looking at America and saying you've got an American airline, you've got America kind of slow walking the response to this emergency. We don't want this to be read over there and find out that it's the pilot's fault and not Boeing's fault. I think that's a little overblown because I think more of our FAA, I think more of Boeing, for example. I do agree. I do agree less. One thing I'd say is facts matter in this investigation. Mm-hmm. We need to learn these facts. I think grounding the aircraft until we have a good sense was the right move. And I wish America had led on this rather than kind of responding to Canada and many other countries.
Do you believe that Boeing has been transparent enough in the process so far?
It's hard, honestly, I don't want to throw stones. I represent families in airplane crashes. We may actually be in litigation against Boeing out of this crisis, so I don't want to throw stones at Boeing until we know more.
Okay, let me turn to Tom Foreman, who's joining us. Gentlemen, please stay with me as well. Tom, did the president have any choice here? I mean, the bottom line is this country was the last to ground these planes.
Yeah, pretty close to it. He was certainly running out of options. The pressure was mounting ever since the weekend. We started hearing more voices from the U.S. Senate saying, you've got to do something about this. Some of them were a little timid to begin with, but they were growing louder. Aviation analysts were growing louder. And when Canada tipped over the edge here and said it was grounding the planes, you started to say, where are these planes going to go? If our nearest, biggest partner is no longer in the game, let's go ahead and do something. He did say that there was new information about the crash in Africa that led to this immediate grounding of the aircraft. We don't know what that information is. There's been a lot of anticipation about what we will get out of the voice recorder and the data recorder from that plane. We don't know what that is yet, and we don't know if that's what this is about. Remember, Canada, when they stopped this earlier today, said they were using new analysis of satellite tracking of airplanes, and that contributed to their decision. We don't know if that information was shared with the administration, and that's what made this happen. We do know that the president has been a very strong supporter of Boeing, and Boeing has been a strong supporter of him. In fact, the acting head of a DOD is a former Boeing person out there. Nikki Haley, who just left as the ambassador to the UN, has been just appointed to the Boeing board. There is a lot of cross-pollination here between Boeing and this administration. Many people were saying that's why he wouldn't do anything. Obviously, that's not the case, or at least not the case now that he has taken this action. But to your basic question, did he have a choice? Yeah, he did have a choice, but that choice was getting narrower and narrower. And now it seems like it would have been a bit of a quixotic thing to say, oh, we're going to keep standing up against this, when the whole world is saying, let's get some answers first. Especially, and don't forget, we're only talking about a few dozen planes of this variety in the United States. If you park them all it has very, very little impact on the tens of thousands that fly every day. It's not like the air transportation system cannot withstand parking these planes. Again, all the more reason that critics said, so why don't you just park them and sort it out? Why take any kind of risk, Anna?
That is such an important point. It just seems like it should have been a no-brainer. Unless, I keep coming back to this question, what would have happened if this plane crashed in the U.S.? Wouldn't actions haven't been different up until this point?
Well, I can't get in the minds of the FAA or the politics involved with it, but yeah, I'm certain it would be. I mean, just logic would dictate that. Absolutely.